Welcome, everyone. Did you know that silence can be the key to wisdom? Today, we're diving into Schopenhauer's fascinating idea, why the wisest people stay silent. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this. And if you want more profound insights like this, hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey of deep thought and discovery. Let's dive in. Why the wisest people stay silent. Schopenhauer, the lips of wisdom. 1. The wisdom of silence. Why words can weaken the mind. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where, the more you speak, the less clarity you feel? It's almost as if your words start to unravel the thoughts you once held firmly. Schopenhauer, the famous philosopher, understood this well. He believed that speaking too much dilutes the true power of wisdom. In his view, words are not just tools of communication, but powerful forces that, if overused, can weaken the mind. You see, when we talk too much, we risk losing the depth of our own thoughts. We fill the space with noise, and in doing so, we cloud our inner wisdom. Think about it. When was the last time you had a moment of clarity? Was it during a long conversation, or was it in a quiet moment when you allowed your mind to breathe and simply be? That's the power of silence. Schopenhauer argued that silence is not a void, but rather an active, potent force. When we remain silent, we allow ourselves the space to think, to reflect, and to truly listen, not just to others, but to ourselves. Silence becomes a sanctuary for our thoughts, a place where wisdom can grow unimpeded by the chaos of words. It's in silence that we connect with our deeper understanding of the world, our true selves, and the lessons we've learned. Silence is where clarity is born, and words, when used sparingly, become much more powerful. So why do we often feel compelled to fill every silence with words? In a world where speaking is often equated with intelligence or social prowess, silence can feel like a weakness. But as Schopenhauer taught us, it is in the quiet moments that the most profound insights emerge. Words may seem like they empower us, but too many of them only dilute the power of what we have to say. By choosing silence, we invite reflection. We allow our thoughts to solidify before they're shared. It's like sculpting a masterpiece. You take a block of stone and chip away at it, carefully crafting something of value. But if you were to continuously pound the stone without thought or care, you'd only create a mess. Silence allows us to chip away at the clutter in our minds, revealing something clear and meaningful. Imagine this. You're in a heated conversation, one where emotions are running high, and every word feels like an attack or a defense. It's easy to get caught up, to fight back with more words, more arguments. But what if instead you paused? What if you took a moment to breathe, to gather your thoughts, and to simply listen? In that pause, you hold the power. By not reacting immediately, you maintain control over the situation. Your silence becomes your strength, a reflection of your ability to remain calm, composed, and in command of your own mind. In a world that demands constant chatter, choosing silence is a radical act of self-preservation. Schopenhauer was not just advocating for quiet, he was advocating for control over our thoughts, our responses, and our minds. Silence is a powerful tool in shaping how we engage with the world, and it's a tool that the wise know how to wield. Take a moment and think about this. When was the last time you truly felt at peace in a conversation? Not overwhelmed by the noise, not dragged into unnecessary debates, but just peaceful. It's in those moments of stillness that you tap into your true wisdom. The more you speak, the more you risk losing that peace, that connection to your deeper self. The fewer words you use, the more space you create for understanding, and the more you understand, the wiser you become. Schopenhauer wasn't simply saying that we should avoid speaking altogether. No, he understood the power of words. They can inspire, they can enlighten, they can create change. But he also recognized that words, when spoken too freely, lose their potency. The wisest people are those who know when to speak and, more importantly, when to remain silent. So next time you're in a conversation and you feel the urge to fill the silence, ask yourself, do I really need to say this? Take a breath, allow the silence to settle, and see what comes up. You might find that your thoughts, your words, and your wisdom are far more powerful when they're not drowned out by unnecessary noise. Silence is not the absence of thought or action. It is the cultivation of both. It's a tool for wisdom, clarity, and control. The more we embrace it, the more we honor the power of our own minds. Words, when chosen wisely and spoken sparingly, become far more impactful, and in the silence between them, true wisdom shines through. 2. Silence versus foolishness. Why the wise avoid unnecessary conversations. Let's face it, we've all been there. Caught in a conversation that goes nowhere, where every word seems to be a waste of time, and yet we keep talking. Why? Because we feel the pressure to fill the silence, to keep the conversation going, even when we know it's not worth it. Schopenhauer, the philosopher of wisdom, understood this better than most. He saw the endless chattering of society as a trap, one that the wise avoid at all costs. Why, you ask? It's simple. The wise know that unnecessary conversation is a form of foolishness. Words spoken without purpose don't add value, they only waste time and energy. In these situations, silence is the most powerful tool. It's not about being rude or antisocial, it's about preserving one's mental energy and time for things that truly matter. Schopenhauer believed that engaging in pointless debates with those who are not willing to listen is a fool's errand. You can argue, you can debate, you can try to convince others of your point of view, but if they're not open to change, all you're doing is exhausting yourself. The wise person knows this and chooses silence over futile arguments. It's not about winning the conversation, it's about protecting your peace. Consider this. You're in a conversation with someone who holds an opinion completely contrary to yours. You know that no matter what you say, they won't change their mind. In fact, the more you speak, the more entrenched they become in their position. So what do? The wise person remains silent. They know that speaking will not lead to understanding, and in fact, it will only breed frustration. This doesn't mean you should never speak. Far from it. Schopenhauer wasn't advocating for complete silence in all situations. What he was advocating for was the wisdom to know when to speak and when not to. The wise person uses their words like a finely crafted tool, choosing the right moment to speak and understanding when their silence will have a greater impact. Now, think about your own life. How many times have you engaged in a conversation simply because you didn't want the silence to feel awkward? How many arguments have you gotten into because you wanted to prove a point, even when deep down you knew it wasn't worth the energy? Schopenhauer's wisdom here is clear. The more you talk, the less power your words have. It's in silence that the true power of your thoughts resides. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. You've probably heard the saying, it's better to keep your mouth shut and be thought a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. This old adage reflects exactly what Schopenhauer was talking about. Sometimes silence is the best response to ignorance, to frustration, or to conflict. By choosing silence, you not only preserve your own peace of mind, but also demonstrate a level of self-control and wisdom that speaks louder than words ever could. And let's not forget how silence can protect us from unnecessary conflict. Think about the last time you argued with someone. Did it lead to a deeper understanding, or did it just escalate the situation? The wise know that most arguments are built on pride, not logic. They avoid falling into this trap by remaining silent. Silence allows them to step back and reassess the situation without getting caught in the emotional whirlwind of an argument. But how do we know when to remain silent? It comes with self-awareness and emotional intelligence. The wise person is in tune with themselves and understands when speaking is unnecessary or unhelpful. They recognize the futility of arguing with ignorance, and instead of wasting their time, they save their energy for more important conversations, ones that actually bring value and growth. Silence is not a weakness, it's a form of strength. By avoiding unnecessary conversations, by choosing not to engage in pointless arguments, the wise protect their peace and preserve their energy. Silence becomes their shield, their way of staying above the fray, of choosing wisdom over foolishness. So next time you find yourself in a situation where the conversation feels empty, where you're tempted to speak just to fill the space, take a moment. Embrace the silence. It's in that silence that you'll find true power. And remember, sometimes saying nothing speaks louder than anything you could ever say. 3. The power of observation, how silence enhances understanding. Have you ever been in a room full of noise, people talking, opinions flying, distractions everywhere? And yet, you found that your mind wasn't fully engaged? It's almost as if the constant chatter drowns out the ability to truly see or hear what's going on around you. Schopenhauer, with his profound understanding of human nature, believed that in the midst of noise, true understanding slips away. And in silence, that understanding becomes crystal clear. Let's dive into this idea. When we're talking, we're often focused on what we want to say next, what we believe, or what we're trying to communicate. But when we remain silent, something extraordinary happens. We become open to the world around us, open to the subtle cues that we often miss when we're distracted by words and opinions. Schopenhauer taught that silence creates space for observation, and observation is the gateway to deep understanding. Imagine walking into a room where people are speaking rapidly, trying to make their voices heard. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind, but if you remain silent, you're able to observe the dynamics, the body language, the unspoken words that speak volumes. You begin to understand the situation on a deeper level, beyond the surface noise. This is the essence of Schopenhauer's wisdom. In a world that is constantly trying to pull us into conversations, into debates, and into opinions, the wise person knows that silence is not just an absence of sound. It's an opportunity to truly see and understand what's going on beneath the surface. Take a moment and think about how often we're in conversations, but we're not really listening. We're waiting for our turn to speak, or we're so caught up in our own thoughts that we miss what others are truly saying. But silence forces us to listen, to observe. It allows us to step back, to take in the whole picture, and to understand it from a broader perspective. In a tense conversation, for example, if you find yourself silenced, you may notice things you wouldn't have otherwise. Maybe you realize the speaker's words are masking deeper emotions, or that their body language contradicts their words. Perhaps the silence allows you to notice small but significant details, the slight hesitation in their voice, the tension in their posture. All of these subtle cues are pieces of the puzzle, and silence allows you to observe them more fully. Without the noise of constant talking, you become more attuned to these unspoken signals, giving you a richer understanding of the situation. Think of it like this. When we speak, we're putting out information. But when we remain silent, we're creating the space for others to reveal things we might not otherwise catch. A person's silence, their actions, their subtle facial expressions, these all tell a story that words sometimes fail to convey. Silence, then, becomes a tool for deepening our awareness and understanding. This is especially important in complex situations, when emotions run high or when misunderstandings are likely. When we stay silent, we resist the urge to fill the space with our own judgments or assumptions. Instead, we take the time to truly absorb what's going on. Schopenhauer believed that the wise person knows when to speak and when to step back, to let the silence work its magic, so to speak. But silence also gives us the gift of introspection. When we're not constantly talking or responding, we create an inner space for reflection. In that moment of stillness, we can examine our own thoughts, our own feelings, and come to a deeper understanding of ourselves. This self-awareness is a key part of Schopenhauer's philosophy, as he believed that only through understanding ourselves could we truly understand the world around us. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation, remember, silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's a tool for greater understanding. Whether you're in a crowded room, a heated debate, or a simple conversation, taking a step back and embracing silence can unlock a whole new layer of awareness. By listening to the world around you, by observing without speaking, you can understand much more than words alone could ever teach you. Schopenhauer's wisdom is simple yet profound. In the quiet moments, in the pauses between words, we find clarity. And it's through this clarity that we gain true understanding. So don't be afraid of silence. Embrace it. It's in the stillness that you'll discover the answers you're seeking, and sometimes the answers you didn't even know you needed. 4. Words as a weapon. Schopenhauer on using silence to control the narrative. What if I told you that silence could be more powerful than the words we speak? That silence, in fact, could be a tool, an extremely effective tool for shaping conversations and controlling situations. It may sound counterintuitive at first, but Schopenhauer, the brilliant philosopher, understood that silence is not just the absence of speech. It can be a weapon of immense power. Imagine for a moment that you're in a conversation and someone is trying to challenge you, trying to drag you into a debate or an argument. What do we usually do? We respond. We defend ourselves. We fight fire with fire, right? But what if instead of responding, you remained silent? What if you allowed that silence to hang in the air, uncomfortable, powerful, and utterly unbreakable? Schopenhauer taught that silence, when used strategically, can control the flow of a conversation and shift its direction entirely. In many situations, our words are like small sparks in a sea of fuel, igniting conflict, misunderstanding, or even unnecessary drama. But silence is like water, calm, unmovable, and often leaving the other person struggling to find their footing. It disrupts the narrative they expect. It challenges their assumptions about how the conversation is supposed to unfold. Take a moment to consider this. When we speak, we're revealing a part of ourselves. But when we remain silent, we hold all the power. We control the conversation, not by forcing our opinions onto others, but by withholding them. By doing so, we give others the space to reveal themselves. In a sense, silence puts the burden of conversation on the other person. And in doing so, we often find that they begin to reveal more than they intended. This is exactly how Schopenhauer viewed the art of conversation. He saw words as tools for manipulation, but silence was an impenetrable shield. When we remain silent, we avoid being manipulated ourselves, and at the same time, we can manipulate the direction of the conversation. The person speaking may try to draw us into their world of words, but by staying silent, we remain free from their influence, holding the upper hand in the exchange. Let's look at a practical example. Think about a moment when someone was trying to challenge your point of view. Perhaps they were being loud or aggressive, pushing their own perspective. The natural instinct is to argue back, to fight for your point. But what if, instead of arguing, you stayed silent? What would happen? The other person may try to fill the silence with more words, growing more agitated or desperate to get a reaction from you. In this moment, you're not only avoiding unnecessary conflict, you're also controlling the rhythm of the conversation. By refusing to engage, you force them to confront their own words and motives. And the longer you remain silent, the more they might reveal about themselves, often in a way that gives you an advantage. But here's the deeper part of Schopenhauer's philosophy on silence as a weapon. It's not just about controlling others, it's also about controlling yourself. By choosing silence, we avoid reacting impulsively to others' provocations. We maintain our emotional composure, and in doing so, we demonstrate true inner strength. Remember, it's much harder to control our emotions than it is to control our words. In a heated situation, the person who reacts with anger or frustration is often the one who loses control of the conversation. But by staying silent, we remain in control of ourselves. The power of silence isn't just external, it's also internal. It's the ability to resist the urge to speak, to act, or to react before truly understanding the full picture. Now think about this in a professional or social setting. Whether in business negotiations, family disputes, or political discussions, silence can create an aura of confidence and self-control. It's often said that the loudest person in the room is the weakest. When we speak too much, we give away too much, but when we remain silent, we make our words more valuable. We can choose to speak only when it matters, and when we do, our words will carry more weight. The person who speaks less is often perceived as more intelligent, more composed, and more strategic. This is Schopenhauer's genius. By using silence, we don't just control the narrative, we craft a narrative that's all our own. Words may win battles, but silence wins wars. 5. The art of saying nothing, how silence reflects true wisdom. When we talk about wisdom, it's easy to imagine grand speeches, profound words, or brilliant ideas that are spoken with conviction. But what if I told you that sometimes the greatest wisdom lies not in what we say, but in what we choose not to say? Schopenhauer, in his unflinching analysis of human behavior, argues that silence is not a sign of ignorance or weakness, but rather a reflection of the deepest kind of wisdom. It's the art of saying nothing when everything around us calls for a response. It's the ability to recognize that there's more power in restraint than in speaking our minds without thought. Let's think about it for a moment. In today's world, we are often conditioned to feel the need to fill every silence with words. Social media bombards us with constant chatter, and the expectation to always have an opinion, to always be talking, can be overwhelming. But what if we paused, even for just a moment, and realized that silence could be the most potent response? Schopenhauer believed that wise individuals don't feel compelled to comment on every topic or engage in every debate. Why? Because they understand that much of what is said, especially in the heat of the moment, is nothing more than noise. Words, when thrown out in excess, lose their value. They become diluted and often irrelevant. But silence? Silence holds an inherent value, and sometimes it's the best way to communicate strength, understanding, and control. Think about the great minds in history, figures like Socrates, Buddha, or even Schopenhauer himself. They were not known for filling every conversation with their thoughts. Instead, they were known for their moments of reflection, their ability to remain silent when silence was needed. They understood the importance of choosing words carefully, and often, they understood that saying nothing at all was the wisest course of action. Here's a personal example. Imagine you're in a situation where someone is ranting, perhaps angrily or irrationally. Most people would feel the pressure to respond, perhaps to defend themselves, to make a point, or to correct what's being said. But what if, instead of reacting, you took a step back and simply remained silent? What would happen? In that moment, silence becomes a powerful force. It forces the other person to confront their own words. It creates space for reflection, and it can even force them to reconsider their approach. In that silence, you're not saying a thing, but you're still influencing the direction of the conversation. The act of saying nothing reflects a deeper understanding of the situation. It shows restraint, emotional intelligence, and self-awareness. Schopenhauer also pointed out that silence is a way to protect our own peace of mind. Words once spoken cannot be taken back, and often, when we speak hastily or without thought, we end up creating unnecessary conflict or misunderstanding. But when we choose silence, we avoid contributing to that noise. We don't add to the chaos. We simply step aside and let the storm pass without being pulled into it. This is the essence of true wisdom, the ability to remain grounded, calm, and unshaken, even when the world around us is filled with noise. It's the art of knowing when to speak, and more importantly, when to remain silent. Think about the power of silence in your own life. How often have you found yourself in situations where saying less or saying nothing at all was the best course of action? It might have been during a heated argument, a tense meeting, or even when someone was sharing their frustrations with you. In these moments, silence is not a form of weakness. It's a form of strength. The next time you find yourself in a challenging conversation, take a moment to breathe. Ask yourself, is this the right moment to speak, or is silence the wiser choice? Sometimes the act of saying nothing is the most profound statement you can make. It's a reflection of your inner wisdom and your ability to navigate the complexities of the world without adding unnecessary noise. In Schopenhauer's view, the wisest people aren't those who have the most to say. They're the ones who understand that silence is often the most powerful response. It's in their ability to remain composed, to withhold unnecessary words, that true wisdom shines through. And there you have it, the true power of silence, as Schopenhauer saw it. The next time you're faced with a choice to speak or remain silent, remember, silence is not empty. It's full of strength, wisdom, and control. If you found this insight into the wisdom of silence valuable, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into philosophy and life lessons. Your support helps us grow and brings more meaningful content your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes saying nothing says everything. See you in the next video.